absolutely fine. What? Oh, what's your problem? That wasn't very nice. Dark Bleatings, everyone. I've been doing my reading challenge, just carried on reading since the last time I've seen you. I meant to put this video up on Friday, but I was too busy reading to make a video. But I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Some people that don't read horror really might try to tell you that doing nothing but reading horror stories over and over, just nothing but horror for days and weeks at a time, like some people, not me mind you, but some other people might tell you that might do peculiar things to a person's brain, but I'm fine. So when I last left you, out of the 63 books that I'm trying to read this month, I was halfway through number 19. So I think I'd read 5 on the last video, and I was halfway through The Women in the Woods by S.Q. McGrath, and I am pleased to inform you today that I have now, the tally is on 36 out of 63. That's where I am. So although that is many books to have read in a month, it's only really just over half of the number I needed, and I've only got like less than a week of this month left now. So I think I've got like 27 books left, so we'll it's just, the thing is, right, I know that that's silly, but I'm very committed to this now, and as you can see, I'm perfectly fine. So I might just carry on maniacally reading absolutely everything that I come across. I'm just going to briefly review these because it's quite a lot of books to go through today. I've got 18 books to tell you about, so we won't spend too long on each one, but I want to give them all their fair dues for my thoughts and whatnot. So The Women in the Woods by S.Q. McGrath, that is a novel that I verily enjoyed. Probably a new favourite author if the next book I read by them is like the same standard as this one. I would describe it as like a slow burn, but like amazing if you like, it's folk horror, but I wouldn't, no wait, yeah, I'd say it's folk horror, not necessarily like cult horror. It's kind of hard to really put it into a box without spoiling like some of the reveals and stuff, but I would say that if you're a fan of something like Midsummer, then you'd absolutely love this book. Really does deserve a lot more readers. I reviewed it on Amazon and Goodreads, and I couldn't believe how few reviews were on it. It's really high quality writing. I really rate it. It's one of my favorite books that I read of like this spell of books I've read, and what was it, like 18 books I've done in about 10 days, so it's very high on my list amongst all of those. Next, a short story collection by J.P. Behrens called We Don't Talk Anymore. There was an author note preceding each story, talking a little bit about the inspiration or the theme or what have you. I had a couple of favourites in this collection. I wouldn't say that all of the stories in this collection were like a home run for me, but the ones that I did like, I really liked. So there was one called The Vote, which was about voting day. And it's a topical thing in the UK right now. We're coming up on a general election, and this was sort of like a dystopian look at the illusion of democracy and freedom, and I was really chilled by it because I could like see this kind of setup happening in real life. Maybe it already does somewhere in the world, but I was like super impressed with that. And the other one that just absolutely chilled me to my core was called In Defiance of Being Alone. It's like a post-apocalypse, like even an apocalyptic story about a guy that's like all alone in the world. There's nobody else left as far as he knows, apart from this one person that he's been talking to via a radio or something, and he finds them, but it makes it a lot worse when he actually finds them. So I don't want to give away like the twist of that one, but yeah, that was really good. So next up, a novel which unfortunately this wasn't really my cup of tea, and the main reason for it was that it committed the cardinal sin, like the number one pet peeve of hatreds that I have in books or films or whatever. I actually can't tell you what that is right now because it will ruin the ending of the book for you, but it was the Amityville Murder House by Andy Rausch. So this is about Jen and Josh, a married couple. Josh is absolutely obsessed with the Amityville murder house. And that whole story, so we're like drawing from like the real life scenario of the Amityville thing, and also there's like some meta conversation about the existing films franchise and the literature and all of that stuff. So it's about that, like this guy's obsessed, he's a dick. He goes ahead and just like buys this house without even consulting his wife. He doesn't give a crap about moving her across the country and spending all this money or whatever. He's a very selfish person. But yeah, I was kind of tapping in and out of the story a little bit. It wasn't quite holding my attention, but for a particular reason, which did become clear in the end. But yeah, like I say, the ending used a trope that I can't stand, and it's just like reader viewer preference, or story absorber preference. I just can't stand it. So I personally wouldn't rate it like too highly, although it had a lot of merits, and I'm sure there's like a bigger audience out there for it, but I'm just not it, I guess. Next, a mystery. I'm fine, but and I can't emphasize enough that I don't think this has anything to do with my sanity or anything, right? But it was a short story called While My Guitar Gently Bleeds. And what's peculiar about this, right? So firstly, the story was really fun. It's about a rock singer that's in the studio one night, and then over the radio he hears the news of his own death, and then, you know, it's like quite fun, creepy kind of story from there. But I don't know who wrote it. I can't find the email from the author that sent this to me. It's definitely a request, because all I have on my Kindle, the only ebooks I have, are review requests that authors have sent me. But like, I googled it, and obviously I can only find the Beatles reference in the song. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know who sent it to me. So I would really like to write a review of it on the interwebs, but I can't, because I don't know where it came from. And I promise I'm fine. I haven't like imagined it or anything. Like, this is a real story that I read. If anyone can shed any light on this, or if you are in fact the author that sent me this story, please accept my apologies for somehow losing your email. It's gone. I can't explain this, but I'm fine though. Next, another short story collection by Paul I'm sorry, but the book by this man, this fella here, it's called Droplets, and it's a short story collection. It had all types of horror, all types of fabulous horror. I've got some more detailed notes here for this one. So I had 3 favorites. Orcus mascula. My pronunciation isn't the best at the best of times, is it? So sorry. For now, I am fine, but, you know, so that story I just said the title of is about a guy that wakes up tied to a chair, and there's a sort of very prim, proper, polite butler, and he starts drilling through the guy's finger. It was so much fun. This was like the kind of thing that maybe I'd like to see in maybe a revamped, updated version of like a Tales from the Crypt Keeper or something like that. It was super fun, like very humorous, but like really dark, really dark, and like super gory. And so like, yeah, if you like that kind of like makes you cringe but you're still watching it like through your fingers and laughing kind of thing, like it had that kind of feel. Friday at the Nightmare Hotel was another favorite, and I described this in my notes as Friday the 13th meets Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. So this is the story of a Jason-esque serial killer who's bored of that, and he's trying not to kill everybody, but it's not going well. It's really like silly, kind of camp, like the... Oh, hi Loki. I thought you were a ghost. Caffeine. Whee! So he's slicing and dicing, but not on purpose, and it was like, it's quite fun. And then there was this other story I really liked called Blackout. Are you kidding me? Stay out. So Blackout was about a thief that's like paid to steal something, but he gets more than he bargained for because it's cursed. That was pretty fun. Anyway, that book I did enjoy. I enjoyed that collection. Next, a novella called Muse by LCW Allingham. So this was quite fun. It's like a fairly quick read. It's not like too serious. So like if you're looking for something that's like horror with some mythology baked in and some sort of like universal concepts, but you don't want anything too heavy, I would recommend this one. It's about a bunch of rich dickhead art dealer types that are like, you know, profiting verily from the talent of the artist that they're discovering, and they're like using up all their talent kind of thing. And then it kind of like explores themes of like the muse, what the muse actually is, capitalism, like the wealth divide between like the talented and the people who actually profit from the talent, which I think anyone who works in any of the arts would kind of have an opinion on this. So he's trying to get back in. So that was a fun story anyway. Two of a Kind from Chisto Healy. I always say his name wrong. I'm so sorry, man. My brain won't retain the pronunciation. I try my best. So Two of a Kind is a novel of extreme horror. It's about two completely different serial killers. They've got like different sort of MOs, different styles, different psychological issues, different lines that they would draw in the sand and all that, and inevitably they come together at some point. My first note that I made when I was reading this was, this better not be a goddamn Exquisite Corpse ripoff. It is not. If you get like a chapter in, say, and you start thinking like that and you're tempted to put the book down because of it, I can assure you that it is not an Exquisite Corpse rip. It's the only thing it has in common with Exquisite Corpse is that it's extreme horror and it's about serial killers, as a lot of extreme horror is. But it's, I don't actually like the subgenre very much, so I'm not the ideal audience for this book, but I will say I was engaged, I was interested, I did read it cover to cover, and I was interested in, I was invested. I wanted to know what happened. It's not for the faint of heart though. It is quite grisly, and obviously because we're dealing with like real world horror stuff, if this is something that bothers you, maybe check the trigger warnings, but I would recommend that to people who like the subgenre for sure. Yeah, I think it was pretty good. Next, I'm really excited to talk about this one actually. This was like really right up my street. It's a novel called Mantis by Erica Summers, and I have read some Erica Summers novellas before, but this was the first novel. I don't know if maybe this is her debut novel, but it's so fun. First of all, it's one of the few books that I've read that has LGBTQ representation, so I really enjoyed that, and it's done really well also. It is so much fun. It's about a woman called Mantis who very casually just kills a demon that shows up in her apartment like it's nothing, and then thanks to the arrival of this demon, she knows something's going down, so she goes to like reassemble the old gang. The old gang gets back together, and the old gang is it's Mantis, an exotic dancer, I think 2 exotic dancers, and a DJ from the strip club who's just kind of been allowed to tag along, and it's so good. The characters are super funny, like the personalities are really, really strong, and we're talking a type of like biblical apocalypse scenario, but it is really funny, the story, like the humor's so good. So we've got like yeah, we've got this gang that are sort of just going around tracking down these like artifacts or something. They're collecting stuff, and obviously they're headed towards like a final boss. So it has like that kind of video game feel to me, where it's like amping up the baddies until you get to the big one at the end. But Mantis as a protagonist is like one of my favorite characters that's ever been put in a book. She's hilarious, and the tone that this is written in is like a real testament to the author, that she pulled off this type of like funny wry humor but baked it into a story with stakes this high. So I thought that was like a really incredible time, and I really enjoyed it, and I would wholeheartedly recommend that to people who enjoy, you know, the good old good versus evil kind of stories with showdowns with a lot of humor baked in. Next, an anthology from PS Publishing called Disintegration, and it features a whole host of just fantastic writers across the board, including some of my favorites. And I have 3 favorite stories that I'll touch on briefly. I don't want to go into all of them, obviously, but because of time. But my 3 favorites were Home by Tim Leben, which reminded me a little bit of Stephen King's Cell, in that there is a sort of corrupting signal that makes people different, but this is way grislier and gorier than Cell. So it's like similar sort of basic concept where it goes in a really different direction, and the end image is absolutely like the stuff of nightmares. So I really enjoyed that. I also enjoyed Tin Pistol by Mark Morris. That was like reminded me of like weird bizarro 50s sci-fi horror. A kid is given this tin pistol that his grandpa made, like handed down to him, and he uses it on a bully with a bizarre effect that he wasn't expecting. And then also The Trickster by Ramsey Campbell, which is about this poor woman called Janet that's like increasingly paranoid about getting scammed, and she's a bit out of touch and uncomfortable with like telemarketers, messages. She no longer trusts the bank to hold her money safely and all of that. So it was really relatable, because who hasn't had a call from a company where they've asked you to confirm who you are, and then before they tell you who they are, they want you to confirm your security information. So it was really relatable, and just watching poor Janet. But I really enjoyed that anthology. It was great. And so yeah, those are my top 3 stories, but I pretty much enjoyed all of them. Next, more camp nuts horror fun, which I'm pretty sure is based on a board game, like a tabletop RPG, I think. I'll have to look into that more, so correct me in the comments if I'm wrong and you know about this. But it's called Damnation, the Gothic game by Frazer Lee. It was a novel, and it's about a group of strangers that get derailed, and they end up in this like spooky castle with a very bizarre host that's putting them up, and they're all told that only one of them can leave. So basically like they gotta like kill each other if they want to get out, but it just doesn't go in the directions you think. It's like the castle sort of like knows what their pasts and their like fears are and things like that, and it like uses it against them a little bit. It's really, again, this is really funny. The tone it's written in is hilarious. There's this one English character, and it's just it's like it's ye olde English, like ye olde times kind of set time wise, and this one character, I just couldn't stop laughing every time he talks. And it was also like the tone that the author wrote the whole story in, that was like capturing the personalities of all the characters, even though it's like 3rd person prose. And I've read other works by Frazer Lee, so I know that that's not his usual style. So I was really impressed that he was able to adopt it so effectively for like the whole novel. So I would recommend that if you're someone who enjoys again like a kind of almost like a LARP feel, but certainly people who enjoy the fantasy and imagination of like tabletop RPGs, but like in a story, like it's just, yeah, a really great time. I'm sorry, are you thirsty? My sandwich! Next, another novella, I dare say. It's called Beneath the Tracks by W.A. Roberts. This is about best friends, Ace and Riley, who are like preteens, I think, if memory serves, and it's not that reliable right now. But they go into the woods, and then their relationship changes a bit when Ace encounters something like maybe not altogether natural. And when he comes out, he's kind of like a dick all of a sudden. So yeah, I can't remember which one's which, but the one that wasn't affected by the thing is trying to figure out what happened and to like help their friend. This one wasn't really my cup of tea. I couldn't really say why. I guess maybe it's just preference about writing style. Like, it didn't really grab me, but it's a short read, and if you're somebody who enjoys like friendship stories and sort of like overcoming the monster kind of stuff, then this might be for you. But yeah, it just wasn't really up my street, unfortunately. Next, this is the greatest title ever. This was a novel by Sean Malia Thompson called Goddamn Zombie Chainsaw Murderer, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's about a group of it's two couples. They go for hiking, camping, and in the mountainous woods, or the woodlandy mountains, I don't know which way around you say that, there's a goddamn zombie chainsaw murderer, literally, and it was like, I don't know, it was funny. Obviously with a title like that, you kind of know what you're in for. Whatever you imagine from a title like that, that's what you get. It was very tongue-in-cheek, it was very silly, it was very camp. There was some like meta jokes in there. The characters were all very well fleshed out and very funny and easy to follow and root for. Yeah, the personality, I don't know this author at all, but I'm gonna assume that they're like a super funny person, because there was a lot of personality in the prose, and to be able to create characters that funny, you kind of have to have a good sense of humor yourself, I think. So it was really entertaining. I will say that, like the Amityville Murder House, a trope is used that I can't stand near the end. However, this trope is used, but it still left like the world open. So I was like about it, but overall, it didn't really ruin my experience of like the whole book. I would still recommend it, even though I personally don't like the direction it went in. But it was quite the hoot, that one. Next, another novella called Writhe, and this one is by Erica Summers again and H.M. Wohl. So this is a co-written effort. This is about a guy called Garrett who gets brainworms. I think you'd put this in the splatterpunk or maybe even the extreme horror genre. It is incredibly violent and grisly and gory, descriptive with all of the blood and guts and all of that stuff. Poor Garrett. He was so relatable. He lives in this like really shitty apartment building, and in return for having some money off his extortionate rent, he agrees to look after the landlord's horrible son, and the horrible son puts a worm in his ear as he's dozing, and then all hell breaks loose. And it was I don't know why I'm laughing. Maybe I've gone a bit demented from all this reading, and maybe I'm desensitized from just book after book of like horrible acts and demons and shit. But it was written with a humorous flair, I would say. And Garrett kind of, he's not quite himself, and a rampage might happen, and you kind of like, oh, that's terrible, but also you kind of, understand why he does some of the stuff he does, even though he would never normally do it. So yeah, Writhe, if you're looking for like a gory, blood splattery, dark, funny kind of good horror time, that's probably a good novella for you. Next on my hit list, a novel called A Misfortune of Lake Monsters by Nicole M. Wolverton. This is my first read by this author as well. This is a great YA cryptid horror, so if you like creatures, you probably like this, especially if you're like a Loch Ness Monster fan. You probably like this. It's really good. It's about a teenager. I'm sorry I didn't write her name down for this note, so I just don't remember what it is. I've read a lot of characters than the last week, but she inherits a family business which is fraudulently keeping a local legend going, the local legend of Old Lucy, which is like a lake monster. So she's got a costume and there's like a route she swims, and she makes sure that she's sighted, and it keeps like the town's economy going. Keeps the town's economy going because it brings in tourism, and the locals are like, you know, it's just like fun for the locals to have this thing and wherever. But then one day when our main protagonist is out there, there is a real thing, and obviously because everyone in town already believes in Old Lucy, they're not extra worried about a monster sighting. So it was really good. And she's got like these two friends that she kind of lets in on the secret, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with this actual monster. And there's like all these interesting family dynamics, and it's, you know, I don't want to say coming of age really, but I guess it is. It's like a coming of age, like, horror story. I would describe this as like, it's really wholesome. Like the friendships and stuff and the relationships are really wholesome. So you've got all like this cool horror stuff going on. You got like a cool bit of sci-fi thrown in there as well. But it's just like a really, you know, like a good old fashioned story about a girl and her friends trying to overcome, you know, something horrible and, you know, save your town and everything. And it was, yeah, I just had a really good time reading it. And yeah, I definitely would recommend that, especially if you're looking for a book. If you have teenagers that like horror, maybe this would like a great shout. But I enjoyed it as an adult anyway. This Island Earth by Dale Bailey is a short story collection that I read also. The theme is like super fun. So I really kind of liked all the stories, but it's got that old retro horror film. It's got an old retro horror feel to it on purpose. It's themed that way, so there's a little bit of artwork on the front page of every new story, and it's like that old like monster movie poster style. All the titles are things like, you know, you've got stories like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, The Horror of Party Beach, I Married a Monster from Outer Space. So like that's like the ilk we're talking here. And there was just like the art and the theme and the concept just came together so well, and like the writing itself felt like something of that period to me. And it was taking all these like really great like old monster mash kind of things, but putting like maybe a new slant, or like digging a bit deeper thematically or something. So yeah, that was a really fun collection, and especially if you like collections that have a theme, like I would definitely recommend that to people of like, you know, old Universal monster movies and things like that. A novel called They Are Cursed Like You by Holly Cornetto and S.O. Green. I absolutely loved this one. It was so good. I'm always going on that I can never find witch stories, and here you are. Here is a brilliant witch story. I would say this is like adult horror, even though half of the characters are teenagers, but it's so it's about a group of witches, and they at some point sometime in their past came together, like formed this coven, came together, did a spell, and all of their lives have gone swimmingly because of it. But then one day all their luck runs out, so like horrible things start cropping back up, like the spell, like the magic's kind of like undone, so they're all dealing with like really horrible things. And then at the same time we've got a group of teenage girls who find this, one of them steals a book from the witch's house, and they want to get into witchcraft, and they sort of like, yeah, so that the two groups kind of come together. It was so good, man. Like I just didn't know where it was gonna go. It was oh, this is another one that is LGBTQ friendly as well, which is like, I really appreciate that in books now, because it's just like, you know, for like all the books I've told you about, there's hardly any with that kind of representation. So I really enjoyed this. So I thought that initially this was going to be a story just about, you know, like female empowerment and sisterhood, and like, you know, like the general stuff that comes up with like witch stories and stories with covens and things like that. But it's so much more. It goes so far past that. It's presented like that on the surface initially, but then when you like start digging into it, it just gets a lot deeper. You've got like all these themes about like the purpose and the expectations, societal expectations, depending on where you live, especially of women, and sort of like the the lack of power like all of us feel about like our own destinies and stuff, and like the limited control we have over the events of our lives. You can only control so many things, and horrible things happen to everybody. So you've got like, you kind of got all of this, and then like, I guess what I took from it is just like that desperate screaming into the void thing, where you just want to be able to sit down and control all the elements of your life, but things are inevitably going to go awry. And then what I also really liked as well is that this subverts a lot of typical witch story tropes, especially the ones about sisterhood, where you expect everyone to be this really, really tight-knit group. But this kind of goes more the direction of something like The Craft, where actually everyone's kind of in it for themselves. And as soon as the luck runs out or the magic starts going away, you see people's true colours and, you know, what sisterhood actually means to them, or maybe the lack thereof of meaning of that. And also at the head of all of this, we have the witch that started all of this, and like the sort of like side story of what's going on with her that ties back in really nicely. So it gets really grisly. It does not shy away from really difficult themes and some really like hard bloody scenes as well that really, really shocked me. There was just like, I don't think I have any criticisms of this book. I really loved it, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it. Next, another novel was pretty good. This Thing is Starving by Isabel Ashleen. I think that's how you say the surname. So this was really interesting, narratively speaking. So Veronica moves home with her mum and her siblings, and Veronica is the only person in the family that's adopted, so she feels slightly disconnected in a way that her siblings don't. They've moved to this new place for financial reasons, and also because her mum Louise is like basically hiding from a horribly abusive husband. And the way that the story is told is that the house is like watching Veronica, so like we're getting kind of commentary in a viewpoint of the house, or you know, rather things that are in the house. But it was, yeah, that caught my attention straight away, and I actually thought that this was a really powerful story because they are cursed, like you obviously touched on, like sort of like female themes, but this is very much a statement about the injustices that are done to women, and it does very eloquently put into words and images a lot of things I think that women struggle to articulate, or the kind of things that women do articulate and then they're completely dismissed when you talk openly in society about them and things like that. So it made me really angry when I was reading it. You know, there's some triggering things in here if you've been through some stuff. So maybe if you avoid books with certain triggers, I would check the book out before you read it. But I thought it was actually like a really powerful piece of like feminist literature is what I would call this. I was really engaged and hooked, and I related to quite a lot of the points that were being made in it, and it just gave me like that general feeling of sort of like, you know, kinship with my fellow womanfolk, and all of that. So that was the end of the sentence. I don't know why I said and. That was the end of that sentence. So book good in short. And finally, a book I just finished. This is also a novel by Elliot Gish, and it's called Grey Dog. It was a slow burn, but very worth the journey if you enjoy a slow burn kind of story. This is about a lady called Ada who is sent to a different town to take up a teaching job, and she's been put up in a house by this nice older couple, and it's quite a slow but atmospheric burn. So if you enjoy a novel that you can kind of like really sink yourself into and take your time with it and you're not in a rush, this was like a great read. It doesn't unfold everything at a nice pace, but I'm just saying this is a leisurely read is what I would describe it as. This isn't something that you would want to just whip through really fast, even though I had to whip through it really fast because of time. But I really enjoyed it. Ada's a really complicated character. There's a lot of details coming out. So she moves to this town, and she's fine with her vocation, but it's really not what she would prefer to be doing. Her interest really is in like natural history and science and, you know, creatures and the woods and plants and things like that. But she has been kind of sent there by her dad because of something shameful in her recent past. I was very impressed by like how themes were woven in and discussed and explored here. There was a lot of, I would say that this was sort of about like, partly about like the cyclical nature of like life and death, rebirth, and things like that. I did not have a clue where the story was going. I had no idea. I was like, it could be, this could turn into like a ghost story, this could be a creature story, this could be vampires, this could be fucking fairies, like seriously, they mentioned. So I just didn't know where it was going to go, and I loved that, because you're being fed these details like at a pace where you're very much engaged and interested, but I could not work out where it was going. Like, I had some theories, but I was wrong. So I really enjoyed it. If you're looking for something that's like, there is some violence and bloodshed in this, but if you're looking for something that's like blood, guts, and gold, like, this wouldn't be a story for you. But if you enjoy atmosphere and then like, you know, pulling the threads of sort of like deep themes, especially if we're talking like the endurance of women. This is another, I wouldn't really say this is like a feminist story necessarily, but this is definitely like a story about the experience of a woman and women like her. So yeah, if you're interested in that, that would also be a good book for you. I think I've got a week left and like 26 or 27 books. I can't do any counting good anymore. So I don't have much time really to sit around here and talk anymore. So on that note, I'll see you on the final installment of this challenge. So wish me luck, and I'm absolutely